2, 1.
Welcome in the Husker Extra Podcast. I'm Chris. There's Sipple. Parker's going to join us here in a couple minutes, doing some work-related stuff. It's 4:09 p.m. Friday, January 29th, the year of our Lord 2021. There's a foot and a half of snow on the ground, it seems like.
Yeah.
We're warm and cozy in our offices. I'm in the home office. Sipple's in the work office. Should we just jump right into it, Sip?
Yeah, did you shovel?
I've shoveled multiple. I actually didn't shovel much because I have a neighbor across the street who has a big snowblower and he loves to snowblow. So he came over and cleared out my driveway 3 times for me.
No way.
It was insane. Oh yeah, I shoveled my entire driveway by myself once through this whole storm.
Oh, I think my neighbors don't really like me, and one has a snowblower, so he didn't help. He actually did my sidewalk, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah,
but man, you talk about the old. I shoveled 4 times.
Oh, it's brutal. It's brutal. I can even I take Gus on walks, and it's the most depressing thing ever because the snow's deeper than he is tall. So he just gives up and he's taking a crap in the street. Basically, I'm standing there with my dog on a leash. It's this is sad.
As long as you're not taking a crap in the street.
Well, I stopped doing that 3 or 4 months ago. So hopefully I'm past that.
All right,
we're off the rails already.
Let's talk some sports.
Let's talk some basketball. We are 1 week away. Well, not quite a week away. 8 days away from Nebraska men's basketball returning to the court February 6th at Michigan State, coming off their COVID-19 pause. They went on pause January 11th. So it will be 4 weeks. Basically, it'll be 26 days from when they went on pause to their first game. They played 2 games in the month of January. Who knows who they'll have available? We found out today that assistant coach Matt Abdelmassi is in isolation. He tested positive 8 days ago. Said it's no joke. Said he's had some symptoms and it's felt pretty rough. We know at least 7 players, in addition to Fred Hoiberg, tested positive when they went on pause. We know a couple players tested positive over the summer. We know Eduardo Andre tested positive right before the season started. So you're looking at 10 plus players who have had this, plus at least 2 of the coaches, plus several staffers on top of that. So it's really ravaged the program. It's really run through the program. And it's, of course, when you pause activities, you're not doing anything. You're not doing individual workouts. You're not doing team workouts. You got a lot of guys in isolation, not doing anything. Now you got to try and ramp back up in a week, get back in shape, then go on the road and start playing Big Ten games again. So going to be a fascinating next month for Nebraska as they try to figure out, can they, A, get back on the court and get going, and B, can they make up the 6 games they've lost plus the 9 they still have on the schedule in essentially 30 days. So we don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet. We don't have the schedule yet, but you can bet Nebraska's going to be playing a lot of games in a short amount of time.
Do you think so? Okay, so to rewind a little bit, Nebraska last played on January 10th.
January 10th, yes.
Yeah, against Indiana. They have not played a game since.
Yep.
Their next game then will be, say,
February 6th at
February
Michigan State.
Oh, they're going to play the 6th instead of the 3rd?
Yeah, it was moved back. It's another schedule-related deal because Michigan State's playing Iowa on February 2nd now to make up a game that Michigan State lost because of its own COVID pause. So they just pushed Nebraska back a few days. That gives Nebraska a few more days to kind of ramp up and get into shape.
Wow. I mean, Baz, I don't think that you would have anticipated that Nebraska would have a break like this, right?
No. You think, and obviously who knows, but you think maybe a couple weeks, maybe a week, you get your guys isolated and you get back at it. But yeah, it's when they go back on the court, they'll start February 6th. Last day of the regular season is March 7th. So they have a month basically. And it doesn't take a math whiz to figure out that that's not very many days to play 15 games, So the schedule is going to get switched around a lot. We don't know exactly what it'll look like yet. We don't know if Nebraska will be able to play all its games, but yeah, it's going to be a sprint to the finish with a team that's basically going to be trying to play its way back into shape while they're playing these games.
It's really hard. Now, here's the question, or maybe this would be more for me as a columnist to think about more. I don't know. I mean, Baz, my inclination when they come back is not to watch the games and judge them too harshly at all.
No.
I mean, at this point, you really have, as you assess Fred's program, you really have to take into account what's going on.
Yeah, and there's going to be people that say, well, you can't do that, no excuses and blah, blah, blah. You have to do it. I mean, and this isn't an excuse. Like, their program has been ravaged by this. And look at what happened to Michigan State last night. Last night was their first game back at Rutgers. They fell behind 15-0 to start the game, and they lost 67-37.
Oh God, really?
A Tom Izzo team scored 37 points. So and Tom Izzo said after the game, did the COVID layoff affect us? Probably, but we're not going to use that as an excuse. And Fred Hoiberg would say the same thing, of course, because he's a competitor. But man, how does it not affect you like that? How does it not have a major impact on the way you play, the way you train, and all those things? So yeah, when we go back to watching these games, I think you're right, Sip. You can't judge the performance too harshly just because of what has happened over the last.
Now, here's the thing, though, Baz. As you know, okay, it's one thing for me to sit here on January 29th and say that. But you know how it goes when the games get going, they're on TV, it'll look like there'll be a large semblance of normalcy just from an outward. But I think you almost have to remind yourself as a fan, no, they've been off for a huge amount of time. Yeah. And there's no way they can come back playing at a super high level.
Yeah. Well, and look at what they were doing before. Yeah, no, you're right. And look at how they were playing before the layoff. They were 0-5 in the league, and they played some close games, but they were still an 0-5 team with a 22-game losing streak in the conference. And now you're coming back after this month off where you literally haven't done anything for basically three weeks of that. And so, yeah, we're going to watch them on TV and we're probably going to say, oh man, Nebraska looks bad. They're not doing anything.
Yeah. They're probably going to look bad.
They just are. That's the reality of the situation. They haven't played a basketball game in a month. So yeah, it's just one of those years. And I hate doing this, but man, it's like, how can you judge or how can you take too much away from this year? No,
you're fine. I don't want to make excuses for Fred either, and I haven't. I mean, I've been sort of hard on him in my role, but I'll have a hard time just looking at this with any degree of normalcy going forward. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say you can't do that and especially if they're playing basically every other day, if they're playing back-to-back nights. If they're trying to squeeze 15 games into 26, 28 days, whatever it is, how can you look at it with any degree of normalcy? You've basically got a college team playing an NBA schedule coming off a COVID pause with the frequency of the games they're going to be playing. So
you know what, though? You know what? If I were a player, I think I'd like that.
You'd love it.
These guys are playing every other day.
Think about what Teddy Allen said multiple times. He's like, I'm a hooper. I want to hoop. These guys just want to play. They grew up playing AAU ball where they're playing 3 or 4 games in a day, every day. They're playing all summer. These guys just want to play. The want to play will not be an issue. It's just how can you hold up physically? And I was asked today.
On a Zoom right now.
Sipple's on a Zoom right now.
Hey, we're on a Zoom right now.
And no, I was asked today, is it going to be a bigger challenge for Nebraska mentally or physically? And I said, well, it's not going to be a mental challenge. Like, these guys want to play. That's not the issue, and they've been dealing with the pandemic side of this for almost a year now. And you ask all those guys, they just want to play ball. You ask Fred Hoiberg and he'll tell you how these guys want to be in the gym and play. They just want to play. And if they get to play more games in a compressed amount of time, that's awesome. It's just going to be the physical side of it. How can they hold up? How can they stay healthy? How can they get back in shape to at least, try and make these things competitive over the next few weeks?
Jeez. Baz, for your sake, though, I mean, you're probably glad they're going to get back going, right?
I haven't covered a men's basketball game since Christmas Day. So it's been more than a month. I covered the women's game last night, of course, but yeah, I'm like those guys. Those guys want to play. I want to watch hoops game. I've been watching every other team in the league play. I want to watch Nebraska play because that's my beat. So yeah, from my side of it, my side doesn't matter all that much, but it'd be nice to cover the team that I'm on the beat for. Again, that's for sure.
Parker, how are you? Going on?
Parker,
what's up?
Parker.
Pete's looking good. Pete got that haircut.
You did get a haircut, didn't you?
I did.
Handsome fella.
I had him take down the beard a little more than normal because wearing a mask, every time you go to the grocery store, I was starting to wear. I mean, I'm sticking to it. I'm not gonna cave and get.
You're not hawking loogies on the bananas or anything like that when you're at the grocery store.
My God, Baz.
My God.
Would you ever go without the beard, Parker?
I was born with it, and I'll die with it.
Came out of the womb with a beard. His baby pictures are terrifying. I've seen them. It's just a fully formed beard on a baby. It's terrifying.
Would you ever clip that thing? I mean, would you take it way down?
I'd consider it. I haven't yet, though. I've had it for 4 years.
Wouldn't you
say, Baz, that's an incredible beard?
No, the man can grow a beard. I'm not here to argue that at all. The man can grow a beard. And
if I could do that, I would. I'd grow a huge one, but I can't.
I should. I could do it, I think. I kind of got one started here. I just hate shaving.
I like those dudes that have huge beards.
What if we all three of us just went full ZZ Top?
Here's what we do. We all shave on the same day, and then we don't shave again until Nebraska's football finishes with a winning record.
Oh, God. No.
Wow.
Yes.
You talk about
like I say, I'll die with it.
Yeah. Wow.
That was uncalled for, probably.
Oh, that's fine. Should we talk a little football now that young Parker has joined us?
Well, now that the football beat writer's here, what's on your mind, Parker?
Well, it's just the reason why we set a time for a podcast, and then of course, phone call, and it's Ernest Hausman, the talented 2022 linebacker recruit that Nebraska offered from none other than Columbus, Nebraska.
Sure. What's he saying?
Just it's going to be interesting. We won't maybe talk too much about this today, but just that, there was that Yahoo report this week that there may be a quiet period. It's sort of looking like perhaps there'll be a quiet period in recruiting where kids can start visiting campuses for the first time in more than a year, beginning on April 15th and going through June 30th. And that would be, that for the 2022 recruiting class, that'd be the first time those guys, could be on campuses in more than a year. So just kind of looking at this weekend, I'm writing a story about just sort of how, the 2021 recruiting class basically wraps up except for the transfer portal on Wednesday. It's sort of gone under the radar because there's been a lot of other things going on here, and because Nebraska's not really probably, they're going to maybe sign one player. They may not sign any except for Wyndon Ho'ohuli, the linebacker who's been committed now for a month. So, but the second signing day is on Wednesday next week. So just for the weekend, sort of writing about how, as we put the 2021 class in the books, 2022 is going to be pretty weird because these kids will have gone 13 months without any in-person contact with the coaches that are recruiting them. So it's going to be a mad rush too, to get, to go see campuses and see schools and all that. So anyway, so more on that. We can talk more about that next week, maybe. Because there's plenty going on. That's in just in recruiting, but elsewhere too. There's a quarterback that left this week. Sipple, did you see that?
There's a bit of a quarterback issue. Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty big news. Maybe we could start the conversation here. I never know exactly how big a story is going to be.
Yeah.
And McCaffrey became a bit, I would say, now you guys can disagree or agree, whatever you want. I didn't think the McCaffrey story would be as big a story as it turned out to be. I was a little surprised by the reaction.
Yeah, it did. What was interesting about it was it was a big story, and I thought that the responses to it were really interesting. There was I think part of the reason why it was a big story was because it engendered sort of a wide variety of conversation, and we can take it any direction we want. People have had a few days now. It was on Monday. So people have had a few days now to process it. But, some people look at it as, he wasn't good enough to play quarterback here, which the kid's got 4 years of college eligibility left. I think it's a little bit, you're painting with a pretty broad brush to say that. Some people think of it as a failure by the staff. Some people say, it happens. And then there's this broader conversation too about, is it indicative of, or is any of the transfer portal activity, that's happened, because it wasn't just McCaffrey on Monday, it was also Cade Warner and Will Farniok. Is that indicative of this sort of offense versus defense or divide on offense or what have you that some people believe exists, and that Scott Frost was adamant last week when we talked to him that he said it doesn't exist? I think it just elicited sort of a wide variety of opinions and reactions.
Yeah, and there's that big world view that there's a transfer portal now. I mean, some of it to me is a little bit like, some of it's just easily explained. Baz covers a sport where transfers are nothing. I mean, it happens all the time. Right. And football is becoming that way. As you wrote today, Parker, the transfer portal has roughly 1,500 players in it. And that has exceeded last year's total already. And it's going to soar past it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just guys are transferring. I mean, and in basketball, they're doing it. And at football, they're doing it at a high rate. Some of it's just indicative of the world right now.
Put it this way. This is sort of funny. So Sipple and I sort of worked together on this story, and you can find it at huskerextra.com. I got my hands on the raw data of Big Ten players that are in the transfer portal currently, and we broke down how many players from each Big Ten school have transferred since the end of the 2019 season, and then just in the past 2 months since December 1st, 2020. And then we did a capsule for each scholarship Nebraska player that's left in the past 14 months since December 1, 2019, 24 of them. So then I was writing about this Big Ten data, and I plopped it on top of this story, and I put it in our system for publishing at 1:30 p.m. And it was 102 Big Ten players in the portal, and in the past 2 months alone. And between the time I put it in and the time that story went up on the internet, I had to update it twice.
Really?
Yeah, because 2 more Penn State players went in, including the quarterback, Will Levis, who was their backup quarterback yesterday. So yeah, I mean, it's just like it's a ticking. It's like a odometer, like it just keeps on churning.
Yeah, never stops.
Even in those couple hours, there was 2 more Big Ten players that went in, and that's pretty much just how it's been.
See, the way I look at it, now, there's all different. You're right, Parker. There's a different ways to approach it for sure. I mean, I would say if Nebraska were winning, there's a better chance to keep some guys. I don't know about those 3 that left on Tuesday. I don't know if winning would have mattered at all with those, but that factors into the discussion. There's the big picture discussion that we're talking about. With McCaffrey, is it as simple as if he were QB1, would he have gone into the portal?
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying he wouldn't have, but some of it often just comes down to that. If he were QB1, would they have lost the other QB?
Right.
Adrian Martinez? I bet they would have.
Probably, yeah.
So some of it, especially at that position, is just coming down to that. Will Levis is a good quarterback who played a lot at Penn State, but I don't know if it was going to work out for him.
I think sometimes people equate winning or stability with a lack of transfer activity. There's mixed results on that. Like, okay, right. Let's do an experiment. Sipple, name me a program that you think of as a model of consistency in the Big Ten.
Penn State.
Okay. 12 since December 1st.
There you go.
2020.
Northwestern.
Name me another one.
Ohio State.
Great. Ohio State's got 3. Northwestern has 8.
Yeah,
Wisconsin has 4.
Yep. Yeah, Northwestern's an interesting case. So some people will say, well, yeah, that's just backups. No, it's not. They had their top 2 running backs in the portal. And as you guys remember, McGowan. What's his first name? Kyrick? Yeah, Kyrick. Me and Parker talked about Kyrick McGowan that week. He's a very good player. I mean, and that was a senior who was a 3-year starter at Northwestern, who elected to play for whatever reason his last season in another program.
They had They had three, all between December 2019 and November 2020. 3 guys. And one of them was Bennett Skoranek, who's a really good player, who left before they got Peyton Ramsey to go be a receiver at a place where they had a quarterback and ended up at Notre Dame. So, it's programs that aren't immune. Nobody's immune to it. I mean, every program in the Big Ten's had at least 2 since December 1st of this year. But Nebraska's had the most in the Big Ten. I mean, since December 1.
That's true.
Yeah. And part of it too is right. Like I think players just realizing, hey, I'd go somewhere else. Like I was at Northwestern for 3 years. Maybe I want to go play on the coast. Maybe I want to go play in Arizona. Maybe I want to go play in Florida somewhere. And they just want to change the scenery. And it's not good, bad, or otherwise. They just want to do something different, And I think that's probably part of it too. And that's, certainly with a guy like Wandale or Luke McCaffrey or Cade Warner, that's not the case. But, I think that's a lot of it too, is just a lot of these players are realizing, hey, I've got a lot more freedom to move around than I did before. And I've got a better chance to play.
Now, Bass, think about it though. Now you say good, bad, or otherwise. I get that. And I totally agree. But think about the other part of the conversation. And for instance, the fan base here, when a guy leaves, people aren't saying that's good, bad, or otherwise.
Oh.
They're pointing a finger at the coaching staff, particularly the head coach, and saying, now, wait a second, why they're making judgments on the head coach.
But nobody complains when Samari Toure or Marquise Stepp or Chris Kolarevic commits to Nebraska out of the portal.
Commits to Nebraska, right. Yeah. They're leaving somewhere. Yeah, they're leaving a place.
Yeah, look, we can be honest. Like, how many players are sitting down and going, man, I really need to think about how the fans are going to react if I transfer somewhere else. Like, how many guys are actually doing that? You think Luke McCaffrey's sitting there going, man, Luke McCaffrey's not sitting there going, boy, fan base is going to get really mad at Coach Frost or really mad at me if they don't care about that. I think we can be honest about that. Maybe they think about it a little bit, but it's not going to.
I don't know. I mean, the only thing you'd say is you hope that they think about the impact it has on their teammates.
Yeah.
But with so many guys doing it and in the current culture, I doubt that is an issue. I don't think kids these days are looking at it like they used to. Now it's, go get yours. It's more of an individual discussion now.
It is.
In my opinion, it's not as team oriented. It's go get yours. I mean, this is chase your dream. Don't worry about the team. It's not that big of a deal. Now that for older people like me is a little hard to adjust to, but you can. I mean, but I do feel for coaches a little bit.
I always liked what Tim Miles, the former Nebraska men's basketball coach, said when he would talk about transfers, and he's certainly brought in his share, and his successor has certainly brought in his share. And it's maybe a little bit of a cliche, but he said it like these guys only get a certain amount of years to play college basketball, football, whatever it is. You get 4 years, 5 years. If you're not happy, why are you going to stay in a place where you're not happy? Whether you're playing a lot or whether you're not playing at all. You go to college, you play college sports because you want to play college sports and you want to have a positive experience. And not saying that Luke McCaffrey didn't have a positive experience here or Cade Warner didn't have a positive experience, but you only got a certain amount of time to do it, and I think that's maybe tough for those of us who didn't play college sports to understand. It's such a small window in your life to get a chance to do this or to do it at a high level and to experience these different things. And so, guys are going to transfer. And that's part of it too, I think, because you're right, Sipple. Those of us of a certain vintage go, well, what about the team? How is it affecting their teammates? And how's this going to affect morale? But the other part of it is too, these guys are trying to get theirs. They do want to have that positive experience, and they know they only have a limited amount of time to do that. So I think that's part of it too. Yeah,
it almost sounds crazy nowadays to say that. I mean,
it does.
People look at you kind of cross-eyed, like, what are you talking about? Team. I mean, what are you worried? Why are you worried about that?
Here's a McCaffrey angle for you, Sipple, that I think people will be curious about, and it's an open question going forward. Scott talked a little bit about it during a brief radio appearance last night. So now Nebraska has 3 scholarship quarterbacks on its roster, plus the 2 walk-ons from Kearney. They've got Adrian Martinez, who obviously 3-year starter, basically outside of a couple games. And then Logan Smothers, who's been on campus for 1 year, never appeared in a college game, and Heinrich Harburg, who just got to campus this month. Couple walk-ons that have been in the program for a while, Matt Masker and Braden Miller. Does Nebraska need to add a quarterback over the course of the rest of the offseason? And how do you do that? I mean, because if you do, you got to find a guy who you think can be of benefit, but Adrian is entrenched really as a starter at this point and would be really hard to knock off. So how do you see that? Or what would you do, Sipple, if you're Barry Switzer-esque? How would you handle this situation?
Yeah, I am for sure. I would hope that in the spring you see that Adrian improves and Adrian continues to improve and maybe solidifies himself even more than he did the last 4 games, which he played pretty well the last 4 games. And you hope, like what Scott said last night, that you hope what you have on campus is enough.
Yeah.
But that you got to see it. I mean, so what is it? It becomes a very critical spring for Logan Smothers, right? I mean, if you're Logan Smothers, this is big. I got to prove that I'm ready if I'm called upon.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's looking at like, I got to go win that job. It's probably the way he's got to look at it. And in doing so, if you're Mario and Scott Frost and that offensive staff, you hope that picture looks good in the spring. Now, if it doesn't, you got to think about May, right?
Right.
Maybe you got to go find somebody. Now, I don't know how easy it is to do that, to find a guy that would fit your system, a guy who's willing to come into a place where there probably is a starter already. There's a lot of variables that could become sort of unwieldy in that conversation.
Isn't there the other side of it too, where Nebraska's coaching staff kind of has to do their due diligence in the spring and at least take a look at what's out there? And yes,
I don't know.
You want your guy, you want Adrian to get better, you want Logan Smothers to get better, you want Heinrich Harburg to pick things up. But what if there is a guy? What if they do find an FCS guy that's got a ton of experience that is willing to play at a Power 5 and probably be a backup? With Nebraska's injury history at the position. Look at Adrian Martinez hasn't made it all the way through the season unscathed yet, and you don't really know what you have behind him yet because they haven't played in a live game. So the other part, I agree with you, Sip. You're right. They have to do those other things first, but I think you also have to, if you're this coaching staff, you have to at least look at what's out there. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to take somebody, but if you find the right fit and you find a kid that's willing, why wouldn't you have him come on campus?
How do you find a kid who wants to be a backup?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you do or not, but I'm saying you at least got to look.
Yeah. I hear you.
It's interesting. I think there's two. Obviously, like Adrian Martinez, the thing that will have the biggest impact on the 2021 season is how good can Adrian Martinez be, right? Like how well is he going to play? That to me, of course, leave the door open to the possibility that Logan Smothers catches him or surpasses him or is ready to play or whatever. But that for the 2021 season, I think Adrian, but I think you're right, Sipple. It's a critical spring for Logan Smothers. And then I think the next iteration of that question might be like, if Adrian, let's say you were down to it, if you had to get by a half, like I'm not saying that they need to figure out whether Matt Masker can go down to Norman and knock off Oklahoma on the road. But like, if you had to put him in for a half to protect a lead against Purdue, do you in your heart of hearts believe that he can do that? Well, because if he's he's going to be his 4th year in the program. They've liked him all along. He's a pretty good athlete. He's a walk-on. I'm not saying he's Adrian Martinez, but if you think you can get through a short-term stretch with him, maybe you feel different about absolutely having to have a guy. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's put them. Their depth has been whittled down at quarterback, obviously, the past 2 years or the past calendar year, I guess, with Andrew Bunch and Noah Vedral and now Luke McCaffrey all leaving the program. And that happens. I mean, that happens at the Division I level, especially in the quarterback room. But they're down to it now with 3 scholarship guys.
Parker, you have a good feel for the portal and movement in and out of it. How easy would it be to go get a guy in May?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think that, there's going to be names in the portal in May that are not there now.
Right.
And you don't know. I mean, a guy like Will Levis from Penn State, I only bring him up because, one, we already talked about him, and two, he just went in the portal yesterday. But that's a guy who, if he wants to go win a job, like, he probably wants to be on campus for spring ball if that works from an enrollment perspective and all of that. So to me, like, the names that are in the portal right now at the quarterback position may or may not be the same set of names that will be there coming out of spring ball. There's always sort of pivot points in where when people leave programs, typically. We just saw one after a season. Another one typically is at the end of spring ball. And then another one typically is sort of before preseason camp starts. So that's not universal, but those are sort of like the three biggest chunks. So there'll be a fresh round of players across the board, across positions that hit the portal. And there'll be some from Nebraska too, right? After spring ball, or, halfway through spring ball to the end of spring ball, basically, that say, okay, I'm not in position to have a job here. I'm going to go somewhere else. So that'll happen. That's why, that's when Noah Vedral made the call last year. Obviously, it was unique circumstances because of the pandemic. There wasn't actually a spring ball, but that's a guy who went in the portal approximately at the end of spring ball, and now he's going to probably be a multi-year starter in the Big Ten. So there'll be talented players at a lot of positions. There are now, and there will be almost beyond a shadow of a doubt in late April and into May.
My final answer is, if I'm Frost, I'm getting the guys in my program ready. I don't want to worry about the portal at quarterback. I want to get the guys on. I want to make sure the guys on campus are the guys that we can lean on, all of them.
There's a junior college question too, right? Because there might, that's always it's not a magic wand. You can't just say, oh, let's just go get a junior college difference maker. But I don't personally, I don't have a great handle at all on what the junior college scene looks like at any position right now, because they didn't play in the fall. So there's going to be a lot of people holding their cards pretty close to the vest on who they think from the junior college ranks can play. Do you get a chance to see them at all this spring and all of that? So it's an interesting question. Nebraska's only got 2 scholarships left to work with. So we'll see if they cut into that here in the next few days on the recruiting front. But yeah,
don't you have to wonder if a junior college quarterback would be ready, having not played in a long time? I'd question the readiness a little bit.
I know. And so I can make the argument both ways on that. One, then maybe the guy has a level enough head to think like, hey, I haven't played in a long time. I'm not really going in expecting to win the job from Adrian in the fall. So you'd have the right temperament. But then that guy's got to be a value add to your program, though. Like, you don't want to just add a body to the room just to add it. You might as well, at that point, like, Matt Masker has been in the system for 4 years. Right. So, it kind of cuts both ways.
Well, yeah, and, maybe Heinrich Haarberg could get to a level where he's I think he's probably a ways off. But man, the way, if you talk to Heinrich Haarberg, he says one of the things that was appealing to him about Mario was he can get guys ready fast, and that's how, partly how Mario sold him on coming here. We can get you squared away quickly.
Well, he's going to be on campus for as long before they kick off as Adrian Martinez was before he was the starter in 2018. Right. I think people wonder naturally, and we don't know a lot about Logan Smothers, or just sort of like where he's at in his development, but nobody had a normal offseason last year. So this is going to be the first time, hopefully, but this will be the first time he's gone through a normal spring ball. It'll be the first time, obviously, for Heinrich through. So it's going to be an interesting one over the next few months.
That parking garage over by the practice fields that where Nebraska has football practice, and there's that parking garage over in the distance it'd be to the north and the east. Yeah. That's where we might have to camp with binoculars.
Top row.
Yeah. We just we might have to go over there and we're at a safe distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody one of those expensive things that you put on like a tripod that surveyors have. That's what we're looking at.
Drone. We'll just fly the drone over.
Yeah.
Parker, I could see Parker rigging up a drone.
Scott Frost just takes his deer rifle out and blasts the drone out of the sky like on day 1, minute 3.
Parkin's flying a drone.
There's like the red dot crosses across the parking garage. You're like, ooh.
Oh, that would be so much.
I think I'm gonna get out.
I mean,
of
I
here.
wonder if Frost would if he would sign off if we just said, hey, we're going to go over to that parking garage. I mean, there's not that much we can see. Just let us just be totally upfront about it.
Come on, Frosty.
What? We're socially distanced.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're way far away.
Then when he asked about just go, what? Like what? Like I'm just
You
gonna
might not remember this,
what?
Scott, but before the pandemic, you let us come to practice all the time.
Right. Maybe we
Just see if he forgot that they never.
Maybe we
let us
could
in.
trick him. Maybe we could trick Scott Frost into letting.
No,
us
Scott, you let us watch practice before the pandemic.
Maybe it's a deal where you don't ask for permission, you ask for forgiveness. We just
sorry, Scott.
Oh, we didn't know
Scott,
we didn't.
In that 7-on-7 midway through practice, when Smothers threw the 3 touchdowns in a row, like, is that sort of indicative of what you think maybe he can do this fall?
God, yeah.
You guys were lined up in the power eye quite a bit in that first period.
Saw you running a little fullback trap there, Scotty. Hey, Samari Toure was limping around. Is he okay?
Hey, did that dude from USC come as damaged goods?
Jesus.
All right, that's enough. That was fiction.
All right.
That was fiction.
That was all fiction. We're not
That
here
was
to
fiction.
Should we discuss just a couple staff things before we hit the road?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Well, there's a couple staff things going on. I guess
there are.
The most pertinent, probably. I mean, we know that there's a couple positions that are going to be filled at some point in the near future. And we also know that there's one that could potentially need filling. There's nothing official yet, obviously, as of 4:46 p.m. on Friday. But Matt Lubick, the offensive coordinator and receivers coach, is a candidate for the head coaching job at Montana State, FCS school. Formerly covered on the beat by yours truly up in Bozeman. It's interesting, Matt. I mean, we don't really know. We think that there's not a ton of people left in contention, and that Matt probably still is. It's really compelling both ways as to why you might think it's a good opportunity for him, or why he might do it, and then why he might not. Why he might not, it'd be a big pay cut. And, there are challenges at the FCS level. There's no doubt about it because of the pandemic, resources and all of that's all probably in question across the board, not just in Bozeman, but at any FCS school you go to. On the other hand, his dad, Sonny, was the head coach there in the 80s. He was actually born in Bozeman. He played at Montana Western, which is just down the road in Dillon, Montana, as you well know.
Sure.
The taco truck in Dillon is awesome.
There you go.
And then he played there with a couple guys, 2 guys who are assistants on the Montana State staff right now, Brian Armstrong and BJ Robertson. So he's got deep connections to the area, right? He would understand how to recruit there, all of that. And then the last thing is he's been an assistant coach for 26 years, never been a head coach at any level in college. And so if that's something that he wants to do, be a head coach, this might be his best chance so far. It's not like he's going to retire anytime soon necessarily, but he's 46, I think. But
46.
Yeah, he's got a great chance to lead a program if that's a career goal of his. So it's very interesting, and we could learn about that at any time. Montana State has a pretty deliberate hiring process typically, so I would think that a decision would come next week. But I guess we'll see about that.
Yeah, the critical. Oh, go ahead, Baz. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to jump in with some breaking news here. The Nebraska volleyball series this weekend has been postponed because of COVID-19 issues in the Northwestern program. So
Say again.
Nebraska's volleyball series with Northwestern this weekend slated to start tonight in a little over an hour. Postponed. COVID-19 issues in Northwestern's program.
In Northwestern.
Yeah. So the volleyball team made it a week before they had to postpone a couple of matches.
Okay, that's critical. I mean, the thing you wonder, I always think about it with Nebraska volleyball because of there's a lot of urgency with that program because it's a legitimate national title contender and the national championship is the NCAA tournament is in Omaha. The national championship matches are in Omaha. it's a huge season. Think about the COVID discussion as it applies to that program.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be let's face it, for some program, there's more on the line than others, right?
Exactly.
There's a lot more on the line for Nebraska than Northwestern. No offense to Northwestern, but they're not number 5 in the country.
Well, there's a lot more on the line for Nebraska volleyball than there is for Nebraska men's basketball, right?
Yeah, sure.
That's just the way it is. So yeah, that one hurts for the Huskers who are.
As far as Lubick goes, guys, you just don't know because he's not going to talk about it. This comes down to is his ambition to be to be a head coach? How badly does he want to be a head coach?
Yeah.
And so some of it just comes down to that. We don't know that.
And he would do it if he does do it, he would do it in a place where he's very comfortable, obviously, a place that he's familiar with, a culture he's familiar with, an area of the country he's familiar with. So,
and Parker, you heard him on Zoom that one day. He's very close to his dad.
Yeah.
His dad, Sonny Lubick, Baz would remember because Baz is older. Sonny was a very successful head coach at Colorado State. Now, and think about what Matt Lubick said that day. I think Baz was on the call too, the Zoom session, when Matt said his dad watches those Zooms.
Yep.
He literally said, "Hey, Dad." So his dad gets onto those Zoom calls with the media and watches him.
Even though, it's interesting that Sonny Lubick has history. He was the head coach of Montana State in the late 70s, I think. But one sort of geographical note, Lincoln is closer to Fort Collins, where his parents live now, than Bozeman is. So he's actually would be getting a little bit further from home, but he'd be going to a place where his dad coached. And then Dennis Erickson, who hired Matt Lubick to Arizona State and all of that, is also a Montana State grad. And is still pretty involved up that way. So
what's Bozeman close to? Anything?
Nothing.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
that's what.
Pretty far. The closest metro area to Bozeman. I mean, Billings is 100,000. So if you don't count Billings, it's Boise, Idaho, which is 7 hours. Or Boise and Salt Lake City are both 7 hours away.
7.
Okay. Pretty beautiful part of the country, though.
Certainly,
Parker will vouch for it. It's a heck of a place to live if you had to live there.
Not much snow at Big Sky this winter, though. So,
well, it all came down here instead.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, and then so 2 more things quick before we go. Nebraska also is going to hire a senior special teams analyst, probably. I mean, that could, we think that's the route they're going to go special teams wise, and then also a director of player development. So. Both of those things are, sort of to watch for in the next, from the next 10 minutes to the next, few weeks.
Okay. All right, let's wrap it up. Are you still there?
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
Bozeman's a beautiful place, and so is the Hartley neighborhood, and that's where I'm going right now. So.
Yeah, my office is beautiful right now, and I'm going to bang out a college baseball story while I'm sitting in here. So.
All right. Good job.
Good luck to you.
Hey, good luck to you guys.
Thank you, Baz.
You're welcome. Hey, until next week. Parker, Doctor.
Bueller.
Bueller. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.